shifted gears quite thoroughly, and the point with McLuhan is that he's trying to make you think not about the person sending the message, but about the message itself, more to the point, what is being done in this exact action. So, the difference between, and this is probably the easiest case to see, the difference between calling your girlfriend versus sending her an email. What message should she be taking away if you do the one? Phone call.
Personal.
Personal. Yeah, it's definitely personal at that point.
Using your voice.
Right, because we have a lot more cues. We have a lot more rapid interaction when we do voice. What else?
I think you also convey to her, because I'm my girlfriend, that moment in time, this is so important to me because a lot of stuff gets misunderstood texting and you don't get it. He so much cares, he so much is concerned about what is being said right now that it's got to be over the phone instead of the other.
And so, increasingly, if I get a phone call, and I'm guessing for others of y'all similarly, if I get a phone call, it suggests urgency.
Yeah, I kind of almost.
It says something now, or time.
Or they're driving.
Essence. Oh my goodness, right. Although, anybody that calls me knows better because I yell at Patrick a lot when he drives while calling. Email. I'm told nobody uses email anymore for communicating with friends, family, loved ones.
Oh.
Well, I would say that Facebook Messages is technically email.
Oh, okay, okay.
And people still do that.
I email my grandparents.
Yeah, I mean, I email often, but I would say I send messages to my friends.
Right, and
But
so
It's
texting is
still,
what
Well, also, like,
normal.
now that there's FaceTime and Skype and things like that, I mean, it makes it more personal, because
They like it
especially with,
better
like,
when
my
it's
children,
like
my grandma can see them and actually see them growing, so I would say that's taken more over email, too.
Can I turn that on its head? So
Yeah.
that
I text
so I can
photos and
actually
stuff.
say that I completely agree because the exact opposite happened to me. I was driving down to Anchorage for one of my doctor's appointments, and there's this favorite place in Healy. I always stop at a cafe, stretch my legs, whatever, and then let the dog out and walk around. And I see that I've got an email from my daughter-in-law, so I open it up, and it starts off with, Josiah Michael's okay. I'm like, oh, you know, really? So it was good that the car was stopped. I was seated in the restaurant. She sends me an email message. She sends me an email to tell me that my son's best friend he crew chiefs on the Osprey. He's starting out with, it's okay, Josiah Michael is okay. But an Osprey went down, and the crew chiefs were killed, and the pilots were. And I get this in an email. It doesn't matter that it's not my son now. I guess I still get affected by that. I was about to throw up. My knees went weak, and I relived the whole thing of, oh my God, would have been my son. He was one Osprey ride away from that being him. And she sends me an email.
One of the characteristics of email is that it signifies strongly that sense of impersonality, in the same way that voice and increasingly Skype, of course, creates a greater sense of intimacy. Email decreases that, even though the message may be the exact same one that you would perhaps text or perhaps Facebook. Because even Facebook messaging is going to be a little bit less hugely depersonalized than email.
Why?
Well, why would I make that argument?
Well, just because I mean like private messaging
Right.
through Facebook.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're your Facebook friends, you already have a knowledge of what they are.
Well, presumably, if she sent you an email, you also still know who Mary is that way.
Yeah. But
What would it be?
to me, it seems like with Facebook, it would be you have access to all of that information right off the
Linkedness
bat.
of it.
Yeah.
It's contextualized in a different way.
Yeah.
Does that seem?
I guess maybe I don't use Facebook the same way as most people do. Like I use it as going on to like send an email. Like that's what I use it for.
Oh, so you don't actually post to walls ever?
No.
Oh, you go straight to the person.
Yeah, just
Oh,
I message
messaging.
them.
You do messaging.
Messaging.
Okay.
Like I don't like it's not even like I'm like instant messaging them, I'm like literally sending them a message.
Yeah.
I do
On
that
Facebook.
also, and I imagine most of y'all do some of that.
No, I don't
Never?
have Facebook.
Jaw drops dramatically open and does not close. Okay, that's excellent.
Is he real? Something to hide?
Well, I think it's interesting because I manage two different Facebook pages professionally, like for the Department of Residence Life, and then also for the yoga studio that I work for.
Yeah.
And then I use my Facebook as more of a like teaching class at this point in time, and so it's less of like a social sort of thing, although I post many T-Rex cartoons to my husband's.
Your husband's? Since you said husband's. Sorry.
Well, to his.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
okay. So
My multiple husbands.
I would get more done if I had that. So I think that it's kind of started to rise up into more of a business communication as where email is, rather than being on this listserv of getting all of these emails. You get these little posts or something. And then versus email for, I think that there's something on the technology side of it where Facebook has linked better into our mobile devices better than email necessarily.
I also do the same. For me,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah, because both mine are the same.
Both
Gmail
mine
and
come from the
Facebook,
same
yeah.
thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they're hooked up, so. It's kind of annoying sometimes with all that.
Yeah, and that's its own interesting question, and McLuhan would have tons of fun playing around with the notion of, the technologies that get pushed, that push the communication to you, versus the ones where you have to deliberately pull it. Like the old version of Facebook where I had to deliberately log on to get it, or my old email, which I still have set up that way, where I have to deliberately seek it out
Oh.
versus getting it
Yeah,
sent
my email
at you.
comes to me
Yeah,
and
just comes bulk right there.
Facebook messages go straight to me.
And what would we guess would be the difference? What would be the outcome for Mary of the fact that she has her email and her Facebook and everything else pushed to said same mobile device?
Forgets her passwords a lot more.
More
I know I do.
interaction.
They're all the same.
They're all the same. They start blurring together. The boundaries between work versus personal.
Well, my work, I don't have it sent to me. I have to go seek out my work email.
Aha!
That's where I make the
So
distinction.
no.
I try really hard to
Kind
go
of, not
check
so
that.
much. Exactly.
Uh,
And for many of us, that's a deliberate choice, right? In an attempt to try to recreate those boundaries because you have such blurring between the boundaries of personal and work already. Identity is yoga instructor, and part of what drives that is the interpersonal thrives off of that.
Mhm.
And so you don't have that option so much.
I would say people use Facebook really very differently. There's people that promote their businesses and stuff, so they have lots of friends that maybe aren't their friends.
Right.
And then there's the people that use it for like personal things. They only are friends with people with their
That are friends
Yeah.
or family.
family.
Usually
But I know,
sometimes
like, all
just
my-
friends.
My like grandparents and stuff, they have Facebook, but they only have like 8 or 9 friends. And it's just like,
But
you know,
that
their
implies that's
grandchildren
cute.
or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. Yep. Which is pretty much what I do with mine. So maybe what we're noticing is a generational thing. Either which way, though, you can see various ways in which McLuhan's point about the technology, the medium is the message. We can see a lot of ways in which that kind of structures our interactions.
Yeah.
In agreement? Okay. The shorthand name for this is technological determinism. And there are a variety of variants on this theory. McLuhan has also a ton of different,
Okay,
variously interesting things that he says about the technologies.
the technology, I'm so distracted, I'm sorry. Technological, determinism, right, thank you.
By McLuhan.
Yes, well, so he's probably our best example of a theorist.
And I don't know how to spell his name right, or I massacred it.
Oh.
Marshall McLuhan.
I did ask her.
Other things that he talks about, he talked a lot about television and the ways in which that was going to impact family structures.
So we're gonna be reading these for Friday? Or for,
Well, so the article for Friday is about families and technology.
okay, is it by him?
It's not by him, he's long dead. And so one of the fun things about McLuhan is that he has these fancy phrases like medium is the message that we're seeing all these impacts.
Oh, okay, I see.
He died long before he ever got to see any of the technologies we're talking about. He lived in the age when television was first coming out and was theorizing all this stuff. And for a long time, technological determinism got argued against pretty strongly. It's come back into vogue in part because the eerie predictive value of a lot of the things that he said that wasn't realized at the time so strongly starts to become much clearer today. And so there's this weird sense when you read his stuff, you'd never guess that it was, more than 50 years old.
I
So,
would say that, like, I agree with that, like, the median is the message.
Mm.
I would say that's,
yeah, I have a lot of interest in,
He's the same one that did the whole thing as like the fish can't see the water sort of
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
right, that we don't see what the technologies we use are doing to us. Yes, we could argue, so the counter-argument against technological determinism is that we created these technologies. Technology isn't determining anything. We're choosing how we use it. And the fact that we keep using it in these same ways is our own fault, right? So if you don't like the way that email is depersonalizing your life, or if you don't like the way Facebook is making your life not private, stop using it.
Right.
but then,
Exactly.
it's socialized, you can't just, like, cut yourself off. There's people that, and I have done it before, will be like, I'm not gonna use Facebook, or I'm not gonna,
It's hard,
and
right?
it works fine for you, but, like, then you realize, like, you're missing out on this huge aspect of,
And you get all these social pressures about it, right,
Yeah.
Ronnie?
That's how I
Tell
feel
us.
with Twitter.
Oh my
My
God.
situation. All my friends, that's why I don't have Facebook, but all my friends are on Twitter.
Okay.
And that's my only social network. I
Mm.
only follow my friends
On
on,
Twitter.
And yeah, I do not Twitter.
No.
I have Twitter.
Everyone who doesn't have a Facebook always has a Twitter, it seems.
That's
Oh.
interesting.
Ooh,
Oh,
interesting.
that's interesting.
It's how my husband is, yeah.
And so, yeah, Caitlin's point, the fact that one of the important points McLuhan makes is that a lot of the times we say we make these quote-unquote choices, but we don't really. It's never a conscious, individual-based decision. The fish doesn't see the water it swims in. We don't really see, we're so enmeshed in our social networks and our social technologies that we can't really see what they're doing to us longer term for the most part. And we don't really have individual choice based on it.
Yeah.
At least it's severely circumscribed.
Yeah,
I
not,
don't know
well,
if I agree with that.
Well, I mean, like, okay, so the generation that the kids born in the 1990s have never known a world without computers, and increasingly never known a world without cell phones.
Or with
And
the
it-
social media.
And then, so as it starts to get, so the children that I have will not know a world without, possibly, the next big thing that they're talking about is embedded technology in your clothing or in your eyewear or,
our RFIDs.
and other sort of things that, your refrigerator tells you when it's out of milk.
Devices.
I mean, that integration will become so closely interlinked with us, and it's not like they got a choice of, no, I want to be born in the era of radio. They didn't really have that opportunity, although I would say that being able to put a low jack on your 15-year-old, being able to, like, say, where is my child through their cell phone,
Oh, okay.
which I would say that my mother had many frustrations with raising my sister because she wouldn't know where she is.
Right.
But now we always know where we are. Like, I was going to Nashville for a wedding, and the idea of being able to navigate my way around the airport or just get picked up from the airport without having a cell phone would have been mind-boggling. Like, where do I go? Where are you? Where am I? How do we relate to each other? I mean, like, the entire, like, figuring out a world without having that constant, this is where I am and this is where you are, and we can communicate at any point in time with each other.
And so our relations to time and to planning get shifted, arguably.
I would say that we're far more like minute to minute detail organized as far as our days and our times and how everything gets interlinked.
I don't have a smartphone, so maybe that's also the disconnect. I don't have this.
I thought you said you got your emails, your
I mean-
Facebook messages pushed to you.
Yeah, I mean, she like my iPod, but that means like I can choose when I'm using it. Like, I don't know, like if I get texts, they go to my phone, and I only have texts and calling on my phone.
Oh, you don't have a full data plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the GPS mapping is so interesting. It doesn't even need to be, to that level, the fact that the biometrics and the ways in which those are increasingly going to be the security devices.
That's kind of scary though.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I,
Infinitely hackable.
yeah. No.
And then it's a life hack instead of just
yeah.
my security word. If you break my security word, that's unfortunate. If you break my iris pattern, I can't change my iris pattern or my fingerprint pattern or life hacks.
Yeah.
That's what they mean when they say that.
No, I remember there's this German like hacking company that
Mm-hmm.
that they pretty much broke figured out how to outsmart the new iPhone like touch screen biometric thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like all it is just a higher resolution fingerprint scanner. That's the only
All they need
difference.
is to get your fingerprint from your car door, your car. Yeah. All right. So, lots of interesting stuff in the future with communication and technological determinism. One of the things I hope you're noticing about theories in this set that are vastly different from the theories that we've talked about earlier. Social psychological theories are grounded in the individual and this sense of we can predict choice because choice is in some sense rational, right? And so people as a whole collectively tend to behave in these ways. It's understandable, it's predictable, it's perhaps even controllable. Cybernetic theories begin from the presumption that choice is not really so much in the individual, it tends to be at the systems level. And so if you want to try to understand things, the place to look is very large scale in general. If you want to try to change, it's going to mean changing the whole, not one or more of the parts. If you want to try to predict, you need to be able to, you're probably not going to be able to, but you need to take into account not just each part individually, but how the parts interact, right? And that notion, if you took 131, we talked a lot about synergy. The ways in which the outcomes in groups are almost impossible to predict on the basis of who's in the group, because what depends on is the interactions of the group. Yeah. So, but Slavik, Bevan, and Jackson give us another example of a cybernetic theory when they talk about interactional view. One of the things that I've always really liked about this one from the textbook is that it does a good job of linking the micro back into that macro. Cybernetic theories where they fall apart, like technological determinism, where they fall apart tends to be saying, okay, that's fine as a generalization, but what does that look like on the ground today? You can tell me all these things are trends, but where am I now and how do I make better choices today? But Slavik, Bevan, and Jackson do a kind of a mid-range version of a cybernetic theory in that they're looking at family systems rather than really large-scale societal systems like technology as a whole. And they do a really good job of linking it back to very specific messages so that you can look line by line in the actual communication messages sent and look at the ways in which each one is a response to the other, but also influences the way it will develop longer term. And so things like this notion of complementarity that they introduce in the textbook. Is everybody comfortable with the idea that in conversation one of the ways we can categorize moves is we can talk about a conversational turn as a one-up or a one-down move. And this has kind of become a popularized notion. It's spread into conversation and culture well enough that I'm guessing you know what it means when I say I'm one-upping you.
Yeah.
Jordan, what does it mean when I'm one-upping you?
You are ahead of me, you're winning,
I'm asserting dominance
yeah,
with some communicative interaction that I'm engaging in, trying to,
you're,
right.
yeah, yes.
Like I'm doing to her right now.
Like I
Yes.
got a paper cut and it's like, well, I broke my leg.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
I broke both my legs.
It makes you feel
Like there's
better.
always those
I went there and cut off my arm. No, that doesn't make me feel better.
Don't you love? And so instead of the expression of sympathy that you think you're going for, right, instead is now this new competition of like who's had the worst damage done
Yeah,
to them, right?
I can
Or who's
actually,
done the
You
stupid
can talk
thing.
it, yeah.
I can actually add on to that. Well, it's not even funny, but
But it wasn't.
a teammate just this past weekend on Saturday dislocated his ankle.
Ow.
Yeah, it was a freak accident.
Oh, so not even part of practice.
No, it was in practice.
Oh, okay.
It was so nasty. He was turning around to go back on defense, and as he was turning, his foot just kept turning and turning, and it popped out. So he was lying on the court, and his shoe, like he's lying like this, and so his shoe or his foot is over here, you know, on his ankle, like it literally popped out. And so I'm seeing it from this angle. Say he's lying the same way these desks
Uh-huh.
are facing, and his foot is literally looking at me, and I was like, oh my gosh. It was very awful and unpleasant.
I just don't understand when people say like, you know, you're like, yeah, I burned myself, and well, if it makes you feel better, you know, I cut off my arm one time, you know, it's like that doesn't make me feel better. Like I don't
I want to be
understand.
validated. I want my pain right now to be the number one spotlight.
I don't understand why people say that. Like, no, thinking about you in pain does not make me feel better. No.
And there's some sense in which it's unanswerable, right? Ronnie has now one-upped all of us, and I'm not even gonna,
No.
even if any of us had the ability to one-up
No.
on that.
Not with
So what's
personal
a-
experience.
I don't wanna go there.
What's a down? What's a
So a one-down conversational mood is letting the other person assert their dominance,
Yeah.
or putting yourself in a more less dominant position.
Yeah. So be like,
And
when
so,
you do the laundry, and then she yes, I'll do the laundry. It's like a submissive kind of thing.
mhm.
Or
It's
also-
more if you're like commanding them to do the laundry than if you're asking.
Well, the other place where you can see one-down conversations a lot of the time really clearly is I'm betting you have friends. When you ask them where they'd like to go to dinner for their birthday, they say, oh, anything's fine,
oh
right?
Yeah,
What does that move do?
Gives you.
but
Throws the burden right back
Back
on
on
you.
you.
And whether you meant to be one-upping that person or not, doesn't really matter, because they're now pushing you into that position.
I hate that. I really hate that.
And especially annoying when you get people competing for the one-down position. Because you've seen that interaction, right? Where, I don't know, anything's fine, what would you
What
like?
about you?
Oh, you know, it's your birthday, I want to
Yeah,
make you
that's-
happy.
that's like the vultures off of the Jungle Book. I don't know what you want to do.
Right.
I don't know.
Right, right. And so eventually somebody will, but it's funny because, you know, it's almost, it's the same sort of complementary relationship in the sense, symmetrical relationship in the sense that everybody's competing for the one-down position, and it feels almost exactly like the same kinds of one-up
Yeah.
competitions that you get with people trying to top each other for having had the worst injuries ever in the history of humanity, right?
Don't you think it's the same thing?
It is. That's what I'm saying. And so the point for the system, for the relationship, the interaction as a whole, is that it doesn't really matter very much whether you're in a symmetrical relationship with everybody going one down, one down, one down, or whether everybody's going one up, one up, one up, one up. What you need is to change the system so that you get a mix of one-ups and one-downs. And it doesn't really matter very much the exact ratio. Indeed, we'd like for it to not be always the same person doing the one-downs and the same person's doing the one-up. What you would like to be able to do is have sometimes one, sometimes the other, and shift it around, right? That's what really good conversation feels like. Right? And you get there through, sometimes you have to do side moves. Moves where it's not clearly one up and it's not clearly one down, but is trying to just move the system as a whole, like create a new opening where we can talk about something different. Sometimes topic changes are a one-up move. We're going to talk now about what I'm interested in talking about now, and we're going to stick to talking about it because I'm the person in authority. Sometimes those topic changes are just a one across move, anything for a new opening because we've recognized that the old was not working for us anymore. And good complementary relationships we like seeing work that way. Does that make sense to everybody? Next question, do we think we can do it?